The world of Mythgard is complex on a level that many of us have not seen, especially not in a digital card game so young and with an original IP. It would be completely reasonable for a game to focus solely on mechanics and develop its original story afterwards, or build from an existing universe, but neither is the case here. Mythgard's world and storyline has been very well thought out, and the clues to an expanded story beyond Chapter 1, which we covered in our last video, are already prevailing. In this installment, we will be beginning our deep and detailed looks into the factions and sub-factions in the world of Mythgard, as well as uncovering the ways that this world functions as a parallel to our own. As we move into these more flexible topics before the continuation of the story, I encourage you to reach out to me and tell me what you would like to learn about next. Until that happens, I will be guiding you unilaterally through the Lore Broker's files. Mythgard takes place in a parallel version of Earth, where the gods chose to move and act among mortals up through the current and modern era. The setting is sometime congruous to our own real-world time, set somewhere during or shortly after the 2020s. So, between being in an alternate timeline and possibly slightly in the future, the story can draw from real-world inspirations and themes, but has enough room to move through and change anything that they see fit. As an example, living deities could have drastically changed World War II, or even kept it from happening completely. What I'm trying to say is that, essentially, very little is safe from being different, and even less can be assumed by the logic of, that's the way it happened in real life. With this in mind, let's take our first dip into the limitless ocean of the story by looking first at Parsa. We will not be looking at the faction from a game perspective, so do not expect to hear anything about gen or token strategies, or why orange is best paired up with yellow. Rather, this is a dive into the storyline as it is told through the flavor text on cards, the expanded lore in the collection, clues in the art, and little bits of information from the devs in public chats. Hopefully, this will be an engaging snapshot of the region and what has made the Empire of Parsa so strong, as well as such a large target for rebellion, specifically from the Zergians. The Parsan Empire is old, very old by our own standards. Originating in northern Africa or the Middle East, Parsa may very well be the first modern civilization of Mythgard, and originating in the cradle of life lends a lot of credence to that. So, when we say old, how old are we talking? Well, the earliest reference to Parsa is an imperial decree from 848 BCE, which would have me estimating that Parsa existed for some time prior to this. We can safely estimate that the Empire of Parsa is roughly 3,000 years old. Now, this is an estimation based on record and only what we have so far. Parsa was most likely founded somewhere around modern-day Mayon, Jordan, or more specifically Rakhmu, which is now called Petra. Rakhmu was settled as early as 9,000 BCE, and we know the empire existed well before Petra's construction because it was not built until nearly 700 years after the Parsan decree we spoke about earlier was issued. While the timetables are still a bit fuzzy, I think we can fairly settle on that 3,000-year-old marker until we have more information. With this understanding in mind, we can place the birth of Parsa at around 1000 BCE. Now that we can place the when of the beginnings of Parsa, let's talk about the how. In our own world and timeline, there was a great empire working around this same time, the Assyrian. But they were ravaged by civil war and ultimately dismantled simultaneously from the inside and out. Here is a key difference in the world of Mythgard. The gods walk the earth and can involve themselves directly in the dealings of mortals. Now, as we will see in future deep dives, this is normally not the case. The gods tend to keep to their own, potentially favoring extraordinary mortals, but not entire civilizations, and certainly not for this long. But this is exactly what happened in the case of Parsa. The decree we spoke about earlier was as follows. And thus shall divine be ever bound to serve the mortal. This was not just some blowhard leader deciding that this is what they wanted. This was a binding pact and covenant with a seemingly expansive heavenly host. The reason we can make this leap in logic is one specific fact. Angels exist. Not only do angels exist, but some were created by a god or gods to aid the Empire of Parsa directly. Additionally, angels and demigods in the presence of Parsan influence are actually compelled to serve, as in they physically yearn for it. So, with the aid of divine power wrapping their weapons and soldiers, and the recruitment of angels of unimaginable strength and ability to the side of Parsa, it is no wonder that their empire is as expansive as it is, and, until recently, wholly unquestioned in the region. After understanding a little bit about the origins of Parsa and how they came into power, we can now talk about modern Parsan life. For this, we will focus on the capital city and the surrounding area. Beacon City is exactly that, a shining beacon of what the Empress expects of humanity. The seat of power of the Parsan Empire lies in the hands of a royal bloodline, and, more specifically, with the aforementioned immortal Empress. Having a near-divine Empress is not without its cost. Civilians of the Empire are bound by very strict laws, including curfews, mandatory service to the Empire, suppression of magic in selected areas as deemed appropriate by the ruling class, and aggressive recruitment into the defense forces. Powerful and rich families are hawkishly convinced into signing over their property or services to the throne of Parsa, and even with the ability to mass-produce combat golems as well as pilot them remotely, the Empire chooses to use flesh and blood soldiers by the tens and hundreds of thousands strictly as a show of strength and divine standing. One might be fooled into thinking that Parsa is some sort of militaristic police state, but you could not be further from the truth. A substantial portion of the Parsan population lives in luxury and wealth. Beacon City has a population in the millions or even tens of millions and is a sprawling metropolis that is quite beautiful and expanding exponentially. A large portion of the population are envious of the accomplishments of the Parsan legions. They shower angels and veterans alike with praise and glory, and the majority seem to be quite happy living under one of the longest-standing empires in history. Without fear of being usurped, the Empress and the royal family have been able to dump considerable resources into Parsan research and development as well. Golems seem to be a key factor in Parsa's power and expansion. Constructed by equal parts technology and alchemical magic, golems provide a means to save the mind and soul of someone in a dire predicament. In a process called transposition, a living being's mind can be copied and archived, and, in some cases, even updated remotely. That copy can then be placed in a ceramorganic construct commonly referred to as a golem. Even without a transposed mind, blank golems can be used to carry out menial tasks or provide basic combat and defensive utility. The wealthy and powerful can even keep themselves from dire positioning by using a proxy in day-to-day activities, while keeping their original and fully organic bodies safe from harm. There are even rumors that a single individual can populate multiple golems simultaneously, and even share the memories and experiences between them in real time. Some carry this proxy life to the extreme. It is said that no one has actually even seen the royal family, for instance, in years or even decades in their true bodies. These advances don't come without a darker undertone. When a mind goes through transposition, it can be altered. Memories or entire sections of the transposed mind can be changed or even erased. There is one card that has flavor text that is very simple, but it opens the doors to some great speculation. Imperfect copy has only 3 words on it: Aleph, Mem, Tav. This is a recitation of the first, middle, and last letters of the Hebrew alphabet. This could reference a few things. It could be an imperial or divine doctrine, something along the lines of, I am the beginning, the middle, and the end. Also, coincidentally or not, this is the reverse of the spelling of the word emet, or truth, in the same language. Because it is truth reversed, this could be a belief that golems are false life, abominable constructs housing a mind, but no soul. I would love to know what you think is a nod to, as well as get your feedback on this episode and the entire series on Twitter, Discord, Reddit, or right here on YouTube in the comments below. For the Zergian sympathizers out there, this could be one of the foundational tenets of the rebellion, that the Empress is a liar, and that her claim to power is false. The rebellion believes that the people of Parsa will all see the Zergian truth soon enough, that there is no line between friend and foe, only time. While the rebellion thinks this way, this does not stop them from acting to try and further and grow the cause themselves. They have done everything from personal recruitment to carrying out terrorist attacks in and around Beacon City, some large enough to cause massive damage and civilian casualties on a scale that is noticed by international celebrities and governments. They employ shadow agents in all tiers of Parsan life and have their own stock of golems, some of which are inhabited by former elite Legion members as well. The Zergian threat is large enough that Parsa has actually considered ceding desert territories to the Zergians, but ultimately decided against it, as giving them land could be seen as an admission of wrongdoing, and those desert lands are where a lot of Parsan families claim lineage from. The Zergians continue to grow their numbers and smuggle weapons through the various fringe markets and bazaars. They seed agents and sympathizers in places of Parsan weakness and hope to bring the Empire crashing down around the false Empress by whatever means necessary. This concludes the current understanding of the origins of Parsa and its rise to power, how day-to-day life works in Parsa, and some of the features that are specific to Parsa and the region of the world. There are plenty of other stories within the lore of Parsa that we will get into in future episodes. One of my favorite sub-stories in the expanded lore is told over the course of 9 or 10 cards, and follows the memories of an unnamed Legion elite in their recollection of love gained and lost. I lovingly refer to this as the Ballad of Sanem, which you can read for yourself if you so choose across the cards currently on the screen. You can also follow the Golden Sands tour through the outlying regions of Parsa, or journey in a day in the streets in the excerpts from The Sands of Hades. As you can tell, there will be no shortage of topics to cover in future episodes. I want to thank Team Rankstar and Inked Gaming for letting me tell this story with my style, as well as the developers and writers at Rhino Games for giving us all this lore to go along with such a stellar game. If you ever want to talk about your own theories or conclusions, or let me know if I missed something or you see things in a different way, I'm very easy to find. Until then, thanks for taking a look inside Mythgard with The Lore Broker's Files.